Hello, the world. Welcome to this random live on Tuesday. So, today, the three questions that I want to answer that keeps coming up a lot is the first question is I don't have options what to do, or some variation of the same feeling or energy. The second is I can't seem to get myself work and prepare for transitioning, even though I want to. And the third one is was it too immature to leave? Was it too immature to take a break? And what am I going to do now? Okay, so let's start with the first one in how can we navigate the question of I don't have options or some variations of it. So I find this I don't have options problematic at least for three reasons. The first reason is because we just automatically put ourselves in the stuck position if we say I don't have options, right? So even if you feel like I don't have options, you just automatically feel okay, you have nowhere to go, and therefore you feel stuck immediately. The second reason or the problem that I find with this mindset of I don't have options is because we are then transferring responsibility to someone else in some ways to say, well, I don't have options. You are the reason I can be happy or unhappy. And this oftentimes we make our employer be the reason or employment be the reason. And therefore we just feel like, okay, everything, my well-being, my the way that I feel, whether I'm unhappy or happy, depends on them, right? So we create this dependency on the employer. And the third is we ignore all of the other abilities and capabilities and the experience and everything that we have. We just put that, like, we just throw this out of the window, and then we just feel like we can't really rely on anything. We can't really rely on all the expertise and everything that we have built so far, and it just feels like we have nowhere to go. So that's why the main problem that I find with I don't have options is that we automatically put ourselves in this I feel stuck, I may as well give up, I have nowhere to go or no options available, and then we just feel like we're so stuck and we can't really know then what to do, or we feel like we don't know how to proceed. And that's what the mindset does is, and then the mindset might be even maybe you're not even phrasing as I don't have options. Maybe you are phrasing as feeling stuck. Maybe you are phrasing it or feeling it as you just don't know where to go and how to proceed, right? All of this coming from I don't have options. Because alternatively, imagine if you believe that you always have options, you always know what to do, where to go, and how to proceed. You always know how to rely on the past. You always know how to create the success that you want to, then you would always find a way to go around it, right? So therefore, I don't have options is actually an optional thought, an optional belief, but we are so easily trapped in that mindset that we then feel like we don't really know what to do. So what we end up then doing is because we feel so stuck and we feel like fearful of not being able to go to where we want to, or feeling like we can't really stay where we want, where we are currently, and then we just automatically put ourselves in this stuck position. In that moment, you need to notice that you are not really believing that you can really find and create options. So that's the one problem. The other problem is that you are not really relying on all of the expertise that you have, and also, you are really not believing that you can actually get yourself out of this feeling of, I don't have options, right? And the problem also is that the more we convince ourselves that that is the case, the more evidence we find. Because interestingly, that our brains are so good at finding evidence for all the fearful worst scenarios that we have. Our brains are so good at finding evidence for how that's true. But when it comes to using our expertise or using all of the evidence to support how we're actually so capable of even navigating in the most difficult situations, in the war zones, in conflict zones, in emergency zones, in hardship duty stations, even though we have navigated so many difficulties and everything, somehow our brain does not really create or rely on that evidence. And the reason why that is because our brain, as soon as we say I don't have options, our brain goes into a constraining or fear mode, um, capacity, and therefore it just creates this tunnel vision, and then we just feel like we have no options or we don't see more options, right? So therefore one of the ways that we need to get out of this I don't have options mindset is we need to observe that if we keep putting ourselves in that state, we are likely to feel stuck and to feel giving up and to feel like we're not really moving forward, and therefore we need to get ourselves out of it. And one of the ways we can do that is regulate fear, meaning that we allow the fear to be there and then process the fear. And once it's gone, then we can really look at, okay, if I really trusted myself, if I really trusted my expertise of the past, if I really believe that I could do whatever I want to do, then what are the steps I could take and how to move forward? These are the some of the ways that we can actually get out of this situation. The other is working on the identity of what if we can actually be the humanitarians who never get stuck, because we know the consequences of where we feel like I don't have options. Even if, let's say, that you are not even transitioning out of the sector, you're just staying within the sector, but you want to transition within the sector to another organization or to another job. If you keep telling yourself that I don't have options and keep convincing yourself, then even if you go and show up at the interview, job interview, you will likely to come with a bit of a desperate energy, with a bit of a needy energy, which we all understand and know too well, right? So, and we don't want to do that. And if we don't want to do that, then we actually need to come to the interview, job interview, or even applying. We need to approach it as we always have options. We know what to do and how to do in case this doesn't work out, and therefore remove this attachment a little bit. Because from the experience that I have seen so many times that attachment does not work. Whenever we get so attached to something, then we know that this is not going to work. And I don't know why that is, but this is just how life seems to function. And therefore, the one of the explanations that I always have is that life does not want us to feel powerless. And whenever we have I don't have options feeling, then we are telling ourselves we're powerless, right? And that's, I think life does not want us to ignore all of the powerful abilities that we have to get out of any situation that we want to. So therefore, I really want us to really work on these at least two things, right? So on the one hand, the fear and regulating that fear. On the other, on the identity of being someone who never gets stuck and who never gets in this feeling of giving up or I don't have options energy, but rather I always have options. I always trust myself to go to what I want to. This is what I would love for us to work on. Now, the second question is I can't seem to get myself to work on the transition that I want to, right? So, a lot of people tell me that they want to transition either to what they love to do outside of the sector or within the sector, but they also want to dedicate time to doing other things they love, the hobbies, the taking care of health or dating or doing other things that are important to them. And then they just feel like they can't get themselves to do that. Now, here are the two at least major things might be happening. One is that we might be feeling like whatever the thing that we're doing outside feels like work, and we don't want to force ourselves to do the work because we are already forcing ourselves to do the main work, which is the humanitarian work, right? And therefore, obviously, our body does not want to be forced by anything, and therefore, we need to figure out why do we keep forcing ourselves to even do the humanitarian work, and why are we forcing ourselves to do this other activity that are important to us? If we are forcing, we're not really doing a good job, right? If we're forcing ourselves, that means that we are not wanting to do the thing that we are doing, and we just keep forcing ourselves because we believe we can't really do any other way. Now that's where the problem starts though, because as soon as we force ourselves, we put ourselves in this victim mindset of, I have no options again, right? It's like the previous question, I have no options. I have to do this. If I don't do this, then I will not survive. If I don't do this, then everything goes bad. If I don't do this, then I will lose my job. If I don't do this, whatever, whatever. And therefore we just put ourselves again in the victim mindset of, I have to do it, and if I don't, then XYZ things happen. Versus, what if we actually are choosing to do it? What if we're actually choosing to do the humanitarian work because no one is forcing ourselves, right? Except ourselves. But even, why are we forcing ourselves? What if we didn't force ourselves? If we didn't force ourselves, would we do that? And if the answer is no, we wouldn't, then maybe we shouldn't. Right? So that's the thing, is if we feel like if we don't force ourselves to do those things, then we're not going to do it, then maybe we should. And if we shouldn't, then what else are we going to do? Maybe there are other jobs that we really want to do and we actually wouldn't ever need to force ourselves to do it. And maybe we need to listen to our emotions in our body that actually tells us that no, this is not where we want to be, right? So that's one way to explore and find out why are we not able to get ourselves to do the other things, is because we keep just forcing ourselves so much and for so long that we just kept ignoring our true desires. And if we really look at our true desires of, is this really what I want to do? Like, seriously, am I choosing to do this? And if I'm not choosing to do this, what else do I choose to do it? Now, when we put ourselves into this choosing mode rather than forcing mode, we then start realizing that sometimes, even if we choose to do things, like for instance, working on our health or working on our physical exercises, or getting a date or going on a date, we feel like, okay, I want to choose it. I choose it because I really want to do this. It's important to me. But then if we still can't get ourselves to do this, right? If we still feel like we're not going on the date, we're not really going to the gym, even though we know that that's important, we now need to understand, what is the emotion that we are trying to avoid? What is the emotion that makes us feel uncomfortable? And we don't tend to like the feeling of uncomfortableness. But why? Why do we not like the feeling of uncomfortableness? Again, because there is this fear that we may need to force ourselves, and we don't want to do that. But there is this difference that I really want you to see, is that if we keep forcing ourselves at work, then our brain like keep rebelling on forcing ourselves anywhere else in our lives, unjustifiably so, because our brain is and our body is saying, no, enough is enough. I don't want to be forced anymore to do anything, right? So that's the big topic that we need to uncover, is what if we don't need to force it, then what happens? And what are the consequences that we need to look at, and whether we like them or not? And what if we actually can create a life where we never need to force ourselves to do the work that we really want to do, where we feel so invigorated by creating the impact, where we feel like it's so good what we're doing that we want to do more of, and where we feel like we are getting so well paid for doing the things that we love, that we feel like, oh my God, I do get to be paid for doing things that I really love. I can't believe it, right? What if we can create that life? Then we wouldn't need to force ourselves at all in that area. And then when it comes to working on our health, then we wouldn't even need to feel like we're forcing. We're just feeling like, okay, we actually want to do these things because I want to keep myself healthy so I can keep working on the other thing. Or I want to keep myself healthy because now I have so much desire to actually go on a date, to create relationships, to settle in, to do the things that I love with my loved ones, right? So we start actually creating so much more balance, or so much more aliveliness, and no need to even force ourselves to do this. Now, that's the one big difference. And then the other difference is when naturally some of us may not like exercising, some of us may not like healthy diets or whatever it is. It's just because we're not doing them. And therefore, in the beginning, it might feel uncomfortable as we keep pursuing are important to us, what's important. And in that moment, feeling doing it may sound like forcing, but it doesn't need to be forcing at all. It just needs to be something like, okay, I feel uncomfortable doing this. I know that I could choose not to do this as well, but I'm choosing to go for it anyway, and I'm willing to feel this uncomfortable feeling anyway, because I know this does good to my body. I know that this is how I want to show up in my for myself. I know that this is what's important for me when I go on a date. Whatever it is, that we can subtly start accepting and being okay with the uncomfortable feeling rather than going into, okay, I have to force myself, I have to do this, and then just like bulldozering ourselves in some way. Instead, willing to feel the uncomfortable emotion and keep doing it anyway. Right. Do you see the difference? Is that the difference is, I think, the maybe if I could summarize, is that forcing ourselves is where I don't care how you feel. You're going to do this anyway. You have no other options. Who cares? This is a job, whatever it is. And then you just go and do the thing and you keep forcing out yourself that way. And the other is, this is what's important to me. I feel uncomfortable doing it because I'm not used to doing it, or I feel like this feels uncomfortable doing it anyway because I'm making this shift, and I'm willing to feel this uncomfortable feeling because I know that I'm just out of the habit. Now, in order to build that habit, I'm willing to feel uncomfortable, and I'm going to do that anyway. So that's the difference. So, therefore, I really want us to think about how we don't need to actually resist our own decisions. I always feel like this is a resistance of our own decision, right? So if we decided that this is what I want to do, this is important to me, this is important for long term, therefore I'm going to work on getting myself ready for transitioning. Then, if we feel this um, resistance of no, I don't have time or I don't have energy, I can't seem to do this, why is that? In that moment, it's important for us to understand if we remove the forcing of ourselves at work, then how that would impact us doing others. And if we allow that uncomfortable emotions and process that emotion, then how do we continue working on it without resisting our own decision? So the third one is, was it too immature to leave the sector, and what to do now, right? So sometimes humanitarians who have already left the sector, or they have taken a break, and then they just feel like, oh my God, I'm not going anywhere. I have taken the year time to actually think about what I want to do, how I want to do, and then I haven't really worked on that. Or I felt like I'm working on all the other projects, but not really on the long term goal that I want to, and then keep wondering about whether it was too immature. Now, the way you know that whether it was immature or not, obviously, is you. But one of the ways that I always tell people is that it really depends on people's tolerance to risk, right? Some people are good at tolerating whatever the risk and then going making the other thing that they really want to work by taking a break, right? So they take a break and then they say, okay, this is the time that I'm going to fully dedicate myself to working on this thing and making it work, right? And that's what I did as well. But there are also other people who tell themselves that's what they want to do, but then once they take, they then out, panicking, things are diminishing or going down, are not really where they want to be, how they have a lot of doubts and fears about whether this will work or not. And then they just spend a lot of time in that space. And therefore, they don't really then spend enough time on working on the things that they really want to work on. And therefore, I always suggested in the past that before taking any decision on leaving the sector, if that's what you're wanting, before taking that decision, prepare yourself emotionally, financially, so that you know how to deal with those emotions when they come up, because they do come up, how to get yourself financially secured at least for a year or two so that you are able to focus on the things and working and building other things that are important to you instead of keep looking at how your savings are going down, right? So therefore, I really suggest that go and prepare yourself first before taking this journey. But there is also the other thing, that trend that I'm noticing is that this may not be really suitable for people who are burnout and they feel like emotionally they're not where they want to be. And therefore, they really want to get away and then rest and recuperate, which is, I think, is amazing if you can afford it. And the other is that when we are in such rage about the sector, or when we are so angry and frustrated about certain things about the sector and then we just want to leave, I see that for some people, this gives a lot of motivation and fuel to work on the thing that they really want to, right? So therefore, it really depends on how is your situation of how are you able to tolerate fear and stress and pressure. And if you feel like you are someone who can't really do that well, then I would say that let's learn that skill first before transitioning to something else. And if you feel like, no, I actually know how to do it, or I'm willing to experience and go through this and still work on the thing that I really want to, because I can't stand this being in the sector anymore. I can't stand being in the situation that I am, or I really want to be with my loved ones and I don't want to lose any more time. Then absolutely, I think you could also take time and work on the thing, and just like the minute you resign from your work, you can start working on creating and building the thing that you really want to, or actually that while working as well. I think that's another amazing way to start building everything necessary and then leaving the sector. That could be another way to go, right? So, immature or not is really the judgment call from your side. What I would love for you to think about if you keep asking that question is, why are you asking that question? Is it because you feel like you need to go back to the sector and then finish certain things? Okay, if that is the case, then what do you need to finish, right? Be specific about what are the unfinished businesses that you have in the sector. And if you feel like, no, I actually want to work on this, I have left anyway, and now I want to work on whatever I want to work on. And I don't want to keep being busy about asking this question, because what is the purpose of this question, right? So I want people to think about when they are asking this question of was it too immature, what they are really saying to themselves is they shouldn't have left, they are regretting a little bit, right? And we need to know that when we are regretting, we're not really going to move forward anyway, right? So we ask why are we regretting? Because we feel like we should have had more money, we should have had more whatever resources. Okay, if we don't have the resources that we want to, can we use that even more fuel to create the thing that we want to? Or we feel like the only solution to our situation is go back and save more money. And if that's the case, okay, fine, make a decision to do that. But why do you think that going back and creating the safety or creating more money would be more easier than creating the thing that you want to? Maybe for some people it is, but I would still challenge whether that's really the case, because we just feel like whatever we know already we can do well and easier, but it's not always the case, right? Even if we go back to the sector where we didn't want in the first place and now we're going back, we will be feeling a lot of emotions that we know too well, and therefore we will be again dragged back to things that we don't really want to, and therefore chances of again working on the things that we really want to may be a little. So therefore, if we're going back to the sector, we need to be specific about what is it that we're trying to achieve by going there, and can't we get the same resources from working on the thing that we want to and keep building the thing into the future rather than going back, right? So everyone's situation is obviously different, but if you can afford to continue building the thing that you want to, then why not do that? because the more you delay the creating and building the thing that you want to after transitioning, the more it will become also harder to working on it, because you will always your brain will always create more obstacles as to why this will not work, how this will not work. And if you keep delaying it, you just keep cementing more and convincing yourself more of how you can't go for the thing that you want to. And I really didn't want you to keep cementing the disbelief about the future, even though we know that you are capable of creating it. Okay, my dears, I hope that I was able to answer to all of your questions. Sorry that it took me a bit longer than usual, but I hope it was beneficial. If you have any of the questions that you would like to discuss with me or get coaching on this, book your call. And I have 2 spots left, and I would love to fill this before I increase my price. So if you've been watching me and thinking about working with me and you've never decided to do that, now is the time. And otherwise, this price that I have currently will no longer be available. Okay, so uh, book your call to talk to me, and in the meantime,